feel like?
Hey there, can you please tell me?
What it feel like?
Hey there, can you please tell me?
Greetings I bring from Yah to all those now tuned in to Ajah's Updates, where we comb through the headlines and check the temperature on how we feel about what's going on in this crazy world we're living in. Feel free to leave a comment if you know how far it goes down them rabbit holes, but do it in love so we can edify the brethren like iron sharpening iron, so we can all leave here feeling enlightened and inspired. You dig? Today, I want to play a game. It's a game inspired by the Marvel series called What If? I think it's a dope concept, and I want to jack that format real quick, flip it and reverse it into a game that we should call What Would the Headlines Be If? And then we slide in a scenario and see if the energy will be the same in an alternate universe. Y'all ready? Alright, let's jump it off with the first story.
Tonight, security video showing the dramatic 5:30 a.m. raid inside a hospital in the occupied West Bank. Those are undercover Israeli commandos, some disguised as medical staff in scrubs, others as Palestinian women in headscarves. Their weapons reportedly equipped with silencers. Israel saying the commandos killed a Hamas operative who was planning an imminent terror attack, along with 2 members of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Tonight, those groups acknowledging their members were killed. One was shot at close range while sleeping in his hospital bed, according to medical officials. The Palestinian Authority condemning the raid as a war crime.
Israel, of course, has the right to carry out operations to bring terrorists to justice, but those operations need to be conducted in full compliance with international humanitarian law.
Now let's step into a world where the foreign people disguised were not pretending to be in Arabic garments, but they pull up to a hospital near you disguised as an Amazon delivery driver or hospital staff, or some in female apparel to come and assassinate patients in their hospital beds. What would the headlines be for that? Would that be considered an act of terror? I know at least it would make the cut for some evil villains in a Hollywood summer blockbuster. I find it crazy for people who, for the last 2 years, were screaming from the mountaintops about the inhumanity of the Russian President Vladimir Putin being a monster and a war criminal for his assault on Ukraine, but doesn't seem bothered, or maybe could care less, about hospitals, churches, and refugee camps being bombed in Gaza. Their populations are literally being starved when foreign aid is being blocked while they're in dire straits. All I'm saying is that there are rules when it comes to war, and you already lost it if you lose your morality to pursue victory at all costs. Jesus Christ, the realest Jew, did not die for Israel alone. He died for the whole world, which includes those Palestinians being collectively punished. Okay, round 2 will bring us to New York City, where if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. There are 5 Venezuelans about to put that to the test.
Disturbing assault caught on camera showing a group of people assaulting 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. Police say the officers were trying to break up a disorderly group when things turned violent. The group of 8 people taking down the officers and kicking them on the ground. 5 people were arrested. 4 of them have already been released back onto the streets. And this comes as NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban delivered his State of the NYPD address this morning. Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Carlo is live in Times Square with the very latest. Anthony.
Lauren, this is the heart of tourism here in Manhattan, so New York City can't afford to have this kind of chaos on the streets. And the NYPD speaking out today saying that these suspects should not be back on the streets, blasting them, calling them cowards. The attack happened here as you take a look at this video as police were trying to break up a disorderly crowd. You see the officer and lieutenant telling the group of men to move, but it escalates quickly. And as police are wrestling with one of the migrants, an all-out melee ensues. The 2 cops ganged up on, kicked in the head, and beaten. One officer suffering cuts to the face, the other bruising to the body. And here, keeping in mind this all happening on a Saturday night, 42nd Street, near restaurants, theaters, a place normally crowded with tourists. The scuffle also close to a city-run shelter, providing housing to migrant men. The migrant crisis also apparently with an impact on crime fighting. The suspects in this case, all believed to be migrants, young men between the ages of 19 and 24, living in various shelters across the city, including the Candler building here in Midtown. 5 of them, as you mentioned, have been arrested so far, but 4 were arraigned and released, pending a future court date. NYPD Chief of Patrol John Schell has a big problem with that and this kind of violence against cops in general.
You have 8 people attacking a lieutenant and a cop, running up to them, trying to kick him in the face and kick him in the face. The 4 that were arrested should be sitting in Rikers right now, on bail, should be indicted this week and taken off our streets. You want to know why our cops are getting assaulted? There's no consequences, and we must change this.
Now step into a world where instead of 5 asylum-seeking immigrants stomping and kicking the face off of the NYPD, let's pretend it was 5 black dudes jumping these cops. I know this is an alternate universe, but I'm not going to go too far out and imagine the release of them hours later. But I'll be reasonable and I'll ask the question, would they even be alive to see it a day in court? This is the NYPD now. The same NYPD that ganged up on a man selling loose cigarettes on a corner whose name was Eric Garner. This NYPD suffocated every breath out of this man's body. With the limited amount of breaths that he had left, Eric Garner articulated the words, "I can't breathe." Words they could care less about, as they kept that pressure on him until his soul left his body. This same NYPD are about to let 5 Venezuelans who aren't even from the country come here and stomp their cops out and kick their faces off, then release them hours later from police custody. To be black in America is truly special. Okay, round 3. Racing to a political rally of a party that's claiming to hold the title of being the undisputed inclusive champions of the world. Let's try to get inside of an event of Vice President Kamala Harris as 2 women wearing hijabs.
We are choosing who's going in and out of the event. I'm sorry.
Why are you choosing us not to go in when we have an invite?
Right, you specifically singled us out.
That's racist. Is it because we have hijabs?
I'm happy to talk to
So
someone else.
It is because they're racist, Islamophobic, obviously.
And you're being racist.
Get a ticket or something?
They're disinviting us because we have hijabs on our heads. That's why, people. Why? This is not a democracy. This is disgusting.
Participating in white supremacy.
They disinvited us. And I think it's clear we have hijabs. Like, why? We have no fight.
Isn't that funny?
We didn't do anything wrong. We literally have an invite. We have a wristband. We showed our... No, here, don't come up with excuses because Easy. Wow. Now I really won't vote for Biden and Harris. That's crazy. Whose decision is that?
Las Vegas.
Because we want to talk to them.
Okay. Come on through. Thanks for being.
Now step into a world where instead of trying to enter a Democratic event, but was denied entry solely based on an ethnic identifiable difference. Let's pretend that this was a Republican event or a rally. What would the headlines be? This would be that smoking gun moment that would validate all the claims of being bigoted and xenophobic. This is that moment to shine a light on their discrimination based on the color of their skin and not the content of character. Yet, in this universe, racism is not racism when the virtue signaling all-inclusive people do it. Okay, in round 4, let's close it out with a what if of the decade. so far. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau seems to be in hot water for straight up violating the civil liberties of the citizens that is afforded to them by the Canadian Charter of Rights with a verdict like this.
Canada's Liberal leader is in hot water this week after a federal court ruled that his decision to invoke the Emergencies Act in February 2022 was unreasonable. These powers were put in place after thousands of truckies protested for 1 month against the government's coronavirus vaccine mandate when driving to and from the United States. The court ruling read, "The federal government's decision to declare a public order emergency under the Emergencies Act in early 2022, as well as the associated regulations that it enacted, were unreasonable and were not justified on the facts or the law. The regulations violated the Charter right to freedom of expression and the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure." But the Trudeau government isn't happy with this court ruling. In fact, it will appeal it. Justin Trudeau's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act weighed on the minds of so many angry Canadians. That's because not only does this act give police more power to remove and arrest protesters, it also gives the government the ability to seize the assets, the bank accounts of those who are refusing to move on from the scenes. This use of power prompted Trudeau to be labelled a tyrant, with many questioning whether this decision was an abuse of power.
Of course it is. It's amazing. This is how all government works. It's not just in Canada. It's here in the United States. It's everywhere. The government tramples on people's rights. And then almost 2 years later, the courts say, you can't do that. Well, they've done it, and then they stopped doing it. They've walked away. They treated it like, a blackjack dealer at shift change in Vegas where they nothing to see here. They walk away. They've done trampled on the rights. They took away the bank accounts. They seized the bank accounts of these truckers protesting. They had a fundamental right to do that. And now everything has gone back to normal. And then a court says, you probably shouldn't have done that. And they go, yeah, shucks, sorry about that. Next time, we probably won't do that. And then next time, of course, they do exactly the same thing again, because the consequences, what are the consequences? Maybe some truckers will get some financial restitution, but as far as Justin Trudeau's he's not going to face any consequence. He literally violated fundamental rights of Canadian citizens. And he's just, probably going to have a nice meal tonight and not think about it ever again. That's his consequence.
Seems like the people should be outraged with this federal judge's ruling, but don't seem to be bothered by the privileged Nepo baby trampling and disrespecting the people's rights and freedoms. So step into a world of me where instead of it being the virtue signaling woke Justin Trudeau doing the pandemic response, in this universe, let's pretend it was Donald Trump firing people en masse for not taking his medical choice that he was suggesting. Let's imagine it was Donald Trump implementing a two-tier society with a passport system proving you took the medical measure he was pushing in order to participate in society. Let's imagine it was Donald Trump invoking martial law, suspending civil liberties and other people protesting him, and also freezing their bank accounts and forfeiting their property to the state. Now let's imagine the reaction of the news media and the people at large with the federal judges ruling against these measures as a violation of the Canadian Charter rights. Would it be this quiet? Would people be this asleep? Or would it be a movement mobilizing to reject fascism with a stance against tyrannical governing, suffocating the will of the people? What if what if what what was good for the goose was good for the gander? Consider yourself updated for now. Until next session, we link up. Walk good and spread love. God bless, fam.